Maya-timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we are continuing with our reading study of Sri Brahma-samhita, its divine literature. And we have come to verse 25. Marie, do you want to chant that verse for us?
I don't have it pulled up just yet. If somebody else has it more handy, maybe they should go first.
Okay, well, I'll just chant it then. Tapastam tapa etina tava siddhir bhavishyati. O Brahman, execute penance while contemplating upon this mantra, and you will attain to all perfection. Purport. The purport is self-evident. So this is the instruction of Dibya Saraswati, Saraswati Devi, the goddess of knowledge, who is giving initiation on behalf of the Lord with this this 18-syllable mantra, which was described in the previous verse. So we can go on to verse 26. Atate pe sasuchiram pinam govindam avyayam Shreta dvipa patim krishnam lokastam paratparam Prakritya guna rupinya paryupasitam Sahasra dala sampane koti kinjaka brimhite Bhumis chintamani tatra karnikade mahasane Samasinam chiranandam jyoti rupam sanatanam Shabda brahma mayam venum vadayantam mukambuje Vilasini ganavritam Sesveramsher abhishtutam. Translation: desiring to attain the grace of Govinda, Brahma took up practicing long penance for the pleasure of that Lord of Shweta Dweep, who is none other than Krishna in Goloka. Brahma's meditation followed in this line. In the land made of wish-fulfilling gems is a 1,000-petaled lotus flower that blooms with millions of stamens. In the center of the lotus, there is a grand throne upon which the eternal Sri Krishna, the embodiment of the effulgence of divine loving ecstasy, is seated. On his lotus lips, the flute of transcendental sound is vibrating sonorously, and his glories are sung by the gopis of his pastimes who surround him, along with the gopis' associates who are their respective personal expansions. As the supreme worshipable object, he is worshipped from outside by Prakriti Maya, who is the embodiment of material qualities, gunas. Purport: Maya's nature is materially active, rajasic, and she assumes the forms of Durga, etc., embodying the qualities of material truth, activation, and inertia or sattva, raja, and tamagun. However, the object of her meditation is completely transcendental, and thus Maya, the embodiment of the inferior potency, meditates upon Krishna with a reverential or worshipful attitude. Whoever has material hankering in the heart should worship Maya Devi's object of worship. Very nice, very nice. It's just so beautiful, isn't it? In other words, right, whoever is under the influence of Maya, in order to cure that disease, they should worship who is her object of worship. Oh, so beautiful. Even without worshiping Maya Devi, they will attain success by worshiping Maya Devi's object of worship. The purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam verse, Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param is that although the various demigods, as expansions of the power of the Supreme Lord, are the bestowers of certain rewards, an intelligent person nonetheless worships the resolute devotion, the Supreme Lord, who is replete with the potency to bestow all fruits. So this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, as it's mentioned here, which is quoted sometimes by our gurus. And it's expressing that, you know, really true intelligence, the outcome of true intelligence is to worship the Lord, right? Whatever qualification or disqualification one may have, if they have some inspiration to worship the Lord, then they should be considered intelligent. You know? They should be considered to have some wisdom. However, they may be judged by some other set of standards. If that's what their final inspiration is, then we can listen to what they have to say, you know. So it's saying akar, it's a very charming verse, the way it's phrased. Akama means one who has no desires. Sarvakamo va, or one who's full of desires. Right? According to normal standards of judgment, you would consider these two persons to be completely different, right? But the consideration of bhakti has its own set of standards, right? Whether you're considered, you know, a renounced, austere person, whether you're considered a lusty or greedy person, if you have some attraction to the Lord, you're in the same boat. You know? By material designations, you may be classed differently, but this is something different, right? This is pertaining to the nirguna plane. Judgment made according to the saguna plane, qualities derived from this mundane sphere. It's a totally different category. And we make so many divisions within that plane, right? But the nirguna plane, the plane that is free from the mundane energy, modes of nature, which is the transcendental, eternal plane, that is a different category, a different set of standards. So whether one has no desires, whether one is full of desires, or whether one moksha kam, or whether one is desiring moksha liberation, they will be considered, you know, udadadi, intelligent. You know, if they have some desire to engage themselves in the bhakti yoga, right? Serving the Lord through devotion. Purushamparam, they're the, you know, no, that Purushamparam, that must be referring to the Lord, the Supreme Person there. So it is quite a revolutionary way of looking at things. And that was something we saw with our Gurudev, right? His, you know, the way that he would look at persons was very different from the way in which we would look at them, you know. He's looking for something beyond our capacity to recognize, actually, you know, some touch of the nirguna plane, you know, stripped of all the filters of this lower plane, right, that we are prejudiced by. Thus Brahma meditated upon Maya Devi's reverentially worshipful truth, Krishna, the supreme enjoyer of his pastimes in Goloka. Pure devotion that is free from all kinds of fleeting desires is nishkam bhakti, or devotion devoid of vested interest or selfishness. The devotion of Brahma and personalities of his general caliber is sakam, or possessing some personal interest. So that's interesting. We were actually discussing this point last week, right? How, you know, Lord Brahma has issues to deal with too, right? You know, and he's technically classified as being within karma mishra bhakti, right? Devotion mixed with some mundane desire. So sakam, with a nishkam, free from desire, sakam, with desire. But the bhakti is still there. There's still some genuine bhakti there. It's just mishra. This word mishra means mixed. Still, even within such devotion with vested interest, there is a selfless stage. And this will be elucidated in the last 5 verses of this holy book. Right, so this is what I was referring. Interesting, we were just mentioning this in our last meeting. I was mentioning this last week, that in this that there are these 5 important verses at the end of this book in which, what is what is this, what is the way forward for this kind of person, right? Who wants to serve, who has genuine desire to offer devotion, but at the same time, has some desire for something within this worldly plane. And how does this person, they're not quite in either side, right? But how are they going to move forward? And that's discussed in these last 5 verses. As long as one has not attained to Sarup Siddhi or perfection in one's divine self, the method given herein is the convenient way of rendering devotional service for the fallen conditioned soul. That's just wonderful, isn't it? The method given herein is the convenient way of rendering devotional service for the fallen conditioned soul. I think that I'm definitely in that category. Sign me up there. Okay, well, we have a Jayadev Ji with us. Do you want to read 27?
Okay, that's a good number, 27. It's all a quarter of 108. That whole 108.9 thing,
Uh-huh.
Do you know about this? Really quick, 1 + 0 + 8. If you look at the numerology, it equals 9. Any multiple of 9, when you add up the numbers in it, comes back to 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 1 + 8 is 9. 9 times 3 is 36. Wait, do I have that right? 27. 2 + 7 is 9. And it goes into that, however big the number, it adds up to a multiple of 9.
Mm-hmm. Well, we now have
I don't
9 participants in our Zoom meeting.
Ah, very well. Okay. Attavenu ninadasya trayi murti mayi gatihi spuranti praviveshashu mukhabjani swayambhuvaha gayatrim gayatastasmad adhigatya sarojajah Sanskritash-chadi guruna dvijatam agamattatah. Sorry, I didn't sleep well. I'm a little cranky. Translation. Thereafter, the Gayatri of threefold form, that is, of the form of Omkara, A, U, emanated as the beautiful harmonious sequence of the song of Sri Krishna's flute. Entering the ears of Brahma, it was swiftly manifest within his lotus mouth. Thus Brahma, who was born of the lotus flower, received Gayatri as it is emanated from the divine flute song of Sri Krishna. And so he was initiated by the Supreme Lord, the original Guru, and elevated to the status of twice born, Dvija. Purport. The divine vibration of Krishna's flute is a sound of truth, cognizance, and ecstasy, Satchidananda Maya. And so the paragon of the Vedas is present within that divine sound. Gayatri is a Vedic meter embracing both meditation and prayer in a compact form. Furthermore, Kama Gayatri is the topmost, since the prayer and meditation contained within it are of the nature of full-fledged divine pastimes in a manner not found in any other Gayatri. Kama Gayatri, which is the Gayatri taken after the 18-syllabled mantra, is Klim Kama Devaya Vidmahe Pushpa Varnaya Dhimahi Tanno Nangah prachodayat. In this Gayatri is indicated the realization of the Leela, or divine pastimes of Sri Gopi Jindavallabha, the beloved of the gopis, after complete meditation upon him, and the prayer to attain to the service of that transcendental Cupid. In the entire transcendental world, there is no higher pursuit for divine love in the shelter of an ecstatic relationship with him. As soon as that Gayatri entered the ears of Lord Brahma, he attained the purificatory initiation into the status of twice-born, or Dvija, and he began to sing the Gayatri. Any jiva who has properly received this Gayatri has attained to divine rebirth. This rebirth is entrance into the transcendental plane, something infinitely superior to the status of the initiation or second birth of the materially conditioned souls that is given according to their nature or lineage in the material world. By divine initiation, the rebirth, that is the attainment of divine birth, one reaches the spiritual world, the ultimate glory of the jiva.
Wow. Wow.
So is this one you get with second initiation then? Is that?
Yeah, that's right. And actually, this is quite interesting. This is why we have to read things again and again, right? Because I had the impression that it was the Brahma Gayatri, the Om Bhur Bhurva Swaha, which is generally considered to, render one reborn, right? But perhaps that's more of a general view, right? But I don't know if this is more of a Vaishnava view, that this Kama Gayatri, this is what we receive. I don't know what other people receive, but yes, and the Gayatri is given by Saraswati Thakur. This Gayatri is given. And actually it's quite interesting because this point, I've been thinking about recently how, because our Gurudev didn't give the Brahma Gayatri to women, right? But at the same time, he permitted women, and it's the Brahma Gayatri, which is the Brahminical initiation, right? And our Gurudev didn't give that to ladies, but he did give this Gayatri to ladies. So that, because my question was, our Gurudev didn't give the Brahma Gayatri to women, which is the Brahminical initiation, but he also permitted women to perform all the Brahminical services, right? So this was kind of a question that I had, that why was he kind of doing one without the other? But now it's seeming like this Gayatri is actually superseding that Gayatri and is giving that second birth, that Dvija status. So that's interesting. And of course, it's a tricky matter to discuss because there's always the Vedic side, and then there's the Vaishnava side, right? And so the Vaishnava consideration will always override the general Vedic, right? And then there's also, and this is something that I was discussing recently, cannot remember when or where, but recently, that, all these practices that we carry out, they have kind of there are two layers to them, right? Like when we're doing puja, right? There's one layer of it being like a Brahminical service, right? But then there's also, it's also a bhakti anga, right? It's a limb of devotion. It's a practice of devotion. So it's quite and all these things too, like chanting of the Gayatri, right? That can be seen as a Brahminical, duty.
I think you quote, to paraphrase, you said one anga is to keep you out of trouble. Is that what you're talking about? Yes,
oh yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. That's one aspect of many of these things, right? Oh yeah, I think we were talking about Archan. Maybe that was just yesterday. Yeah. Like there's that layer, like you're just doing some good activity, right? So you're not doing anything bad, A lot of these rituals are like that, right? So there's that aspect, but then there's also the other where there may be practices of pure devotion or expressions of ultimately expressions of pure devotion, right? So it's a very interesting and complex subject matter. But yeah, this is, and you know, all of that aside, I mean, reading this, welcome Radhanapini, and we are on Dandavat. We are on verse 27 of Brahma-samhita, going to the purport. It just, you know, all of that aside, it's like hearing this, it's like, wow, like this is what our Gurudev wanted to give us. Like, what type of inheritance is waiting for us, right? Like this is like such a high and glorious, grand, dignified thing that he's trying to give us. You know, such great wealth is waiting for us. This is what our Guru is trying to give us. This is what our Gurus are trying to give us. Such a high and noble prospect that we all have. You know? And then we're getting the seeds of that, right? When we're being given these mantras, like this is one of the actions of mantras, right? They're impelling us. The mantras have their own desire, right? The mantras have their own will, and they want to take us to a particular destination, right? So this, as we're hearing here, this Kama Gayatri is supreme, right? I'll just read this line again. In this Gayatri is indicated the realization of the Leela, or divine pastimes, of Sri Gopi Janavallabha, the beloved of the gopis, after complete meditation upon him, and the prayer to attain to the service of that transcendental Cupid. So this desire, this aspiration to serve Krishna in the supreme seva in Goloka Vrindavan, you know, that aspiration is contained within this mantra, right? And so if we, even if we don't have so much understanding of this, but if we're chanting that mantra with faith and with a clean heart, then it will act, right? It's a living, potent vibration. And if we're keeping the mirror of our heart somewhat clean, right, then, and not creating too much resistance, then that mantra will take us where it wants to go. It has its own desire, right? And our gurus are giving that to us, giving the seeds of that to us, right? And we see that in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, right? In the case of Gopakumar, you know, that he has, sorry, getting some distracting notifications here. You know, Gopakumar in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he's a simple cowherd boy, right? And he receives this mantra, this Gopal mantra, right, from his guru. And that mantra wants to take him to Goloka Vrindavan, to the service of Krishna. And you know, that scripture is so helpful for us. Srila Sridhar Maharaj would always recommend devotees to read that book. And so then we're hearing in detail how he's progressively moving from one plane to another. But he's not, as our Gurudev says very sweetly in one place, he's not satisfied until he reaches the embrace of Krishna. You know, everywhere he goes, you know, he attains some status, some recognition. He even attains the post of Lord Brahma for some time, right? Speaking of Lord Brahma. And you know, and that you know, that flies for a little while, but because of this mantra, eventually some dissatisfaction comes about, because the mantra wants to go to somewhere higher, somewhere sweeter. The mantra has another ideal of divine service. So and then he's going through, you know, Mathura, even, you know, Mathura Krishna, meeting Mathura Krishna, but he's not satisfied until he reaches the lotus feet of Krishna and Vrindavan, Krishna, Rajendra, Nandan, Krishna. So this is our, you know, this is our fortune, that we've received these seeds from our guru, right? And we don't have to worry about that. You know, sometimes I like to say like half the work's done, because just finding an authentic guru, that's already like a huge task. That's already a very rare thing, you know, to find the true line, the true guru, and connect with the real seeds. So it's like that work's already been done. Like we like what millions, billions of trillions of people search after and fail to attain. We've attained that. We've made that genuine connection. And now the ball's in our court. Now the other part of it, the other half is that we have to do our part. We have to work a little bit. But half the work's done. We've made it to this divine shelter. Now we've received those seeds. We have to do some cultivating. And those seeds, contain, just like within a seed, right? That analogy that Mahaprabhu gives is so perfect. Everything's contained within that seed, a tiny little, mustard seed, a tiny little apple seed will grow into a big tree, right? The banyan seed grow into a huge banyan tree. So everything is contained within that. We just have to take care of it, cultivate it, water it, right? And everything will follow of its own accord. And also welcome to Kunti and Giri are with us, tuning in from Austin, Texas. Great to see you. Krishna and Johnny's also joined us. Suvasini Didi is actually traveling today. She's just reached London. So she's half with us, half not with us. She's not hosting as usual, but she's. Does anyone want to also Dana?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
While we're on this verse still. So
Mm.
there are two Gayatris so far that we've gone over. Are both of those Gayatris given in second initiation? I didn't even they're different.
Yes, both of these Gayatris, the Gayatri which is described here is the 18-syllable Gayatri, and then also what's been referred to as the Kama Gayatri, they're both given in our Mat and I think also in ISKCON at the time of second initiation. Yeah, I mean, these are the Gayatris established by Saraswati Thakur, right? So in the Gaudiya missions, I would expect everyone is receiving these. And yeah, they're just being, published here for everyone to see. It's quite a privilege. Anyone else have any comments or questions before we move on? Yeah, and I think I might have made a mistake. In the last meeting, perhaps I accidentally referred to the previous Gayatri as the Kama Gayatri. I may have.
Yeah, I thought that was also called the Kama Bija Gayatri. That's
It-
what I'm a little confused.
It may be in some circles, right? That's another thing, right? I'm not sure.
And I kind of had one more question. Just
Mhm.
what is it? Pushpa Barnaya, does that mean like he's wearing flowers or he's in the flower, or what is the Barnaya in Pushpa Barna?
The only thing I can say is that actually there was a question to Saraswati Thakur about this point. And I believe it's referring to Krishna like as this divine Cupid shooting his arrows.
The shooting the arrows, flower arrow. Okay. And then the other thing is Ananga. That's an abbreviated, is the original word after Tanno. I think it's Ananga.
Yeah, Ananga. That is a name for Krishna, right? Ananga Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I don't actually know the meaning. I think referring to his superlative beautiful form, something like that. I'm not sure. Perhaps you can say. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Ananga. That is a name of Krishna. Anyone else have anything to bring up, or should we move on? Who else? Dulal Prabhu looks like he's ready to read some verses. Do you want to read verse 28, Prabhu?
Yes, thank you, Didi. Traya prabudo ta vidir vinyata tatva sagraha dustava vedasrena stotrena nena keshavam. Translation: becoming enlightened by meditating upon that threefold Gayatri, Brahma began with the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, singing his transcendental glories by his hymn, which is the quintessence of all the Vedas. Purport: by meditating upon the Kama Gayatri, Brahma began to conceive, I am an eternal maidservant of Krishna. Although the profound mysteries of servitorship as a maidservant of Sri Krishna were not necessarily revealed to him, his discrimination between spirit and matter developed to such a degree that an ocean of truth came within his grasp. When all the expressions of the Vedas thus became manifest within him, he sung this hymn, which expresses the quintessence of all the Vedas. Because in all respects, this hymn is replete with the Vaishnava Siddhanta, perfect conclusions or truths of Vaishnavism. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught it to his personally favored devotees. The good readers may take the opportunity to daily sing and relish this hymn with devotion.
Thank you, Dulal Prabhu. This is quite an interesting point, actually, how, Lord Brahma, as it's been mentioned in just the previous verse, right, in the purport, Lord Brahma, he's not cannot be considered a fully pure devotee, right? And he's considered a sakam, bhakta. He still has, his devotion is mixed with some mundane desires. But at the same time, he has enough, that his mood of surrender is developed to such a degree, and his aspiration for the truth also, to the extent that he's being blessed to be able to receive, to feel this sentiment, like to realize his true inner, his swarup, right? His inner spiritual nature, as a maidservant of Krishna, right? This is it's a very interesting point, right? Because it's showing that even though we may be in a very mixed condition, impure condition, some touch, right? If we are really sincere, some touch of something very high, may come within our hearts, something very high, very elevated may descend within us, right? So it's this is such a fine and high sentiment to have. It is the highest sentiment to have that feeling that that realization, I'm a maidservant of Krishna. And this is his fortune, right? That he's having that. So it is very encouraging. And it also makes me, think of how, it really, it's like having the contact with a great soul, right? Then so many possibilities are there, because that was something that we also experienced and we saw with our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, that, it was like in the case of many of his followers, right, there would, and our Gurudev also, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada, we've heard these kinds of experiences, right, where it's like there's this temporary suspension of your mundane existence, and you get some touch of some high plane, because there's such potency in their divine presence, right? Then some glimpse, some high feeling may enter the hearts of even lowly souls such as ourselves. That divine vibration can temporarily eclipse, right, whatever mundane affinity, experience, identification that we have, right? That is the potency of these great souls. So beautiful, isn't it? So Lord Brahma, he's received this divine initiation, Dibya Gyan, transmission of divine knowledge. And he's meditating upon this Gayatri mantra. And as a result of his faithful meditation, then this revelation descends into his heart. And his discrimination between spirit and matter developed to such a degree that an ocean of truth came within his grasp. This is only the result of grace, that this type of discrimination can come about. This type of discernment may come about. The veil will be removed, right? And then we can have clarity, then we can see. Otherwise, we are helpless, right? Krishna is the divine hypnotist, right? Srila Sridhar Maharaj describes him in that way. And Maya Devi is the agent, right? So there's this hypnotism going on. We are helpless. We are bound to see what he wants us to see, right? So only if he gives that order, right, to remove the veil, then some clarity comes. And that happens by our surrender, right? Our mood of surrender. Then we become eligible to have clear truth. We're actually ready for having the clear truth. Otherwise, it's like we want to be deceived. Essentially, it comes down to this, that we want to be deceived. So Krishna is deceiving us. We don't want to embrace, his divine guardianship. We want to live in the delusion that we are in our self-centered world, that we are in the center. So Krishna is helping us, that to believe that. That's really what it comes down to. That's what it boils down to. But through surrender, what beauty one may begin to perceive. Now we're going to hear that in these following verses. So I'm going to chant this verse. So now these are the prayers. So Lord Brahma, right? He's faithfully chanted this Gayatri. This revelation, this clarity comes before him, and this beautiful vision of Krishna's divine original form, Govinda Krishna Vrindavan. And now, in receiving that inspiration, that vision, now he's inspired to offer these prayers to Krishna. And we are privileged to be able to have some access to these and to hear them. So these verses, let's see, it's verse 29 up until, what is it, like 50 something? Let's see, these are the prayers of Lord Brahma. It's like 54 or something. 55, 56. These are so from some 29 up until 56. These are the prayers of Lord Brahma. Okay, so going to verse 29. I'm going to chant this in the meter that we've become familiar with through Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. I don't know if there's another one, but this is what we're familiar with. Chintamani prakara sadma sukalpa riksha nakshariteshu surabhira vipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra satasham brahma sevyamanam Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Surrounded by millions of wish-fulfilling trees and abodes made of multitudes of wish-yielding gems, he who tends the ever-yielding cows and who is perpetually served with great affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis, the primeval Lord Govinda, do I worship. So this is a verse which our Gurudev liked very much. There are a few verses amongst these verses which are especially dear to our gurus, particularly beautiful, charming descriptions of Krishna, his nature, his abode, his qualities, and this is one of them. We'll read this purport. Here, by the word Chintamani, transcendental gem is to be understood. As the potency of Maya forms the mundane world from 5 basic material elements, The divine potency has fashioned the transcendental world from the transcendental element of Chintamani. There, the element of Chintamani that serves as the structural material of the residence of the Supreme Lord is infinitely more rare and charming than the general Chintamani known as the philosopher's stone. The general wish-fulfilling tree yields the fruits of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, or religion, wealth, desire, and liberation. Whereas the wish-fulfilling trees in Krishna's abode yield unending fruits of love divine and full variegatedness. The general Kamadhenu, or cows of plenty, give milk as soon as they are milked, whereas from the udders of the cows of Goloka perpetually flows an ocean of the milk that is the fountain of love divine, showering transcendental ecstasy upon the pure devotee jivas, dispelling all their hunger and thirst. The words laksha laksha and sahasra shata, or hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis, indicate infinite multitudes. Sambrahma, describing the Lakshmi's service to Krishna, indicates with hearts saturated with love. Lakshmi means beautiful cowherd damsels or gopis. And Adi Purusha means he who is the origin of all that be. I'm going to read this now. This next verse is one of my absolute favorites. It's so beautiful. Venum kvanantam aravinda dalaya taksham barhavatam samasitam buddha sundarangam kandarpakoti kamaniya vishesha shobham govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Always playing the flute, his eyes like blooming lotus petals, his head adorned with a peacock feather, his beautiful form the hue of a blue cloud, with the unique beauty that charms millions of cupids, the primeval Lord Govinda, do I adore. Always playing the flute, his eyes like blooming lotus petals, his head adorned with a peacock feather, his beautiful form the hue of a blue cloud, with a unique beauty that charms millions of cupids, the primeval Lord Govinda, do I adore. Purport. The unparalleled beauty of Krishna, the darling of Goloka, is being described. The darling of Goloka. The almighty consciousness, Krishna, has a spiritual form by nature. Isn't that wonderful? That just like ends a million discussions. Dulal knows about this. 1,000,001 discussions, arguments, they all are finished by this one simple statement. Yes, there is an almighty consciousness, right? Yes, the divine, the absolute, has a manifestation as this almighty consciousness. However, he also has a spiritual form. And why can't he? The almighty consciousness, Krishna, and that almighty consciousness also has a name. His name is Krishna, as a spiritual form by nature. It is not that Krishna's form can be imagined in comparison to anything beautiful in the material worlds. What is being described here is what Brahma is seeing in his divine trance of devotion. Krishna is wrapped in playing his flute. The beautiful dancing notes of that flute steal away the hearts of all living beings. As the petal of the lotus flower showers sweetness into our hearts, Krishna's eyes, as the revelation of divine vision, expands the unlimited beauty of his moon-like face. His characteristic, oh God, this line kills me every time. His characteristic celestial beauty. His characteristic, like, my goodness, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Characteristic, who has that? Like, only Krishna. Characteristic celestial beauty is set off by the charming ornaments of the peacock feather that adorns his head. Oh my God, like, how can anybody read this and not just, like, you know, say, sign me up yesterday? Like, you're not going to find anything more beautiful, more attractive than this. We feel tranquility in our hearts when we see a beautiful rain cloud. The hue of Krishna's body is of a similar divine blackish blue. Even if we could see or imagine the qualities of this world's Cupid multiplied billions of times, the beauty of Krishna is yet more charming. It's going to read this part again. Krishna is wrapped in playing his flute. The beautiful dancing notes of that flute steal away the hearts of all living beings. As the petal of the lotus flower showers sweetness into our hearts, Krishna's eyes, as the revelation of divine vision, expands the unlimited beauty of his moon-like face. His characteristic celestial beauty is set off by the charming ornaments of the peacock feather that adorns his head. Okay, I'm just going to read one more. Alola Chandrakala Sadvana Malya Vamshi Radnangadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Jibanga Lalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Around his neck is a garland of forest flowers, swinging to and fro, and adorned with a peacock feather lockets. His flute held in hands, adorned with jeweled bracelets. He who eternally revels in pastimes of love, whose charming threefold curved form, Shama Sundar, is his eternal feature. That primeval Lord Govinda do I adore. Purport. The Chintamani Prakada verse is description of the divine abode and divine names headed by Govinda. The Venum Kanantam verse is a description of the Lord's eternal divine form. And in this verse, that forms divine amorous pastimes embodied in 64 transcendental qualities are described. Whatever divine affairs can be described in the scope of divine consorthood, Madhura Ras, are found within these loving pastimes. Once you start, you just can't stop. Angane yasya sakalendriya vritti manti pashyanti panti kalayanti chidam jaganti ananda chinmaya sarujvala vigrahasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship that primeval Lord Govinda, whose form is all ecstatic, all conscious, and all truth, and thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Every part of that transcendental form possesses the functions of all his senses, as he eternally sees, maintains, and regulates infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. Purport. Due to their paucity of a taste for spirituality, a grave doubt wells up in the minds of persons bound by mundane knowledge. Hearing the descriptions of Krishna's pastimes, Leela, they conjecture that the Krishna conception has been conjured up by the fertile brains of some scholarly scribes inspired by mundane experiences. To dispel such a venomous doubt, in this and the following 3 verses, Brahma distinguishes between material and spiritual elements in a scientific matter, and he attempts to give an understanding of Krishna Lila as perceived in the undivided attention of pure consciousness, Shuddha Samadhi. Brahma's aim is to establish that the form of Krishna is the entity of eternity, cognizance, and bliss, while all mundane phenomena are of the nature of the darkness of ignorance. Beyond the specific distinction between the two, the basic principle to be realized is that the transcendental is the most fundamental or original. As the original person, differentiation and variegatedness are ever present in him. Thereby, Krishna's divine abode, divine form, divine name, quality, and pastimes are established as a tangible reality. So this is quite an interesting point. And again, I'm just appreciating the value of reading and rereading, right? These divine literatures. Because this point is very, very helpful, very important that, right? So in these first 2 verses, or is it 3 that we read of Lord Brahma's prayers? By the way, Jayadev, that picture of Gurudev is one of my absolute favorite. I love that you've chosen that one as your image here.
Shripad Madhusudana Maharaj says the same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's the group favorite. So I'm definitely, and my favorite too. So I guess we're all on the same page with that.
Yeah, I mean that moment, like that's a moment captured. That particular expression, like that's a special expression. Like Gurudev showing something of his heart in that moment. You know, it's not like a posed shot, but there's something emanating out of him in that moment. And Sridhar Maharaj is behind him too. It's just so perfect.
Yeah, that's what Maharaj talks about too, that it's all there. You have everything. You have Sridhar Maharaj, you have Gurudeva. Yeah, so beautiful.
So in Lord Brahma's first few verses, he's describing the beauty of Krishna, right? But if you're just reading about that, you can become Sahajya, right? By Sahajya here, I mean imitationist. Other people will have more strict definitions, but in a general sense, we translate as imitationist. So, it becomes a storybook, right? And there's no clear idea of like, what is the actual spiritual nature of that and how far removed it is from our current plane of mundane experience, right? And it's something that could be dragged down to this lower plane and understood in connection with the experience and perception of this lower plane. So then in this verse, Lord Brahma is removing any doubts like that or any misunderstanding that may come about. That beautiful form that you're hearing described, it is of the nature of all truth, all consciousness, eternity, and divine bliss. So don't misunderstand. And he has this, with his transcendental nature, this line, right? Angani yasya sakalenji riti manti. Every part of his form possesses the functions of every other part. He can see, he can hear, he can feel with every part of his divine body, right? This is his divine capacity. And so understand that this is beyond anything of this limited mundane plane. This is all happening on a purely spiritual platform. And then this next paragraph is also elaborating further on this idea that, so then who can perceive that in a real way? That's also not an ordinary person. To have true perception of that is not just a matter of seeing with our fleshy, gross eyes, but one requires a heart of full surrender and divine vision. Those pastimes are to be tasted only by a person who is endowed with pure theistic intellect and full freedom from any relationship with mundanity. The holy abode, the place of pastimes made of divine wish-yielding gems, manifest by divine potency and Krishna's form, all are transcendental. As the Maya's potency is a shadow of the Chit, or transcendental potency, similarly, the variegatedness fashioned by Maya is also a contemptible reflection or shadow of the variegatedness in the transcendental plane. It is for this reason that some semblance of the transcendental variegatedness may be apparent in the mundane world. Despite that semblance, there is a gulf of distinction between the two. Haribol. The loathsomeness of the mundane is its flaw, but there is variegatedness in the transcendental reality devoid of such a blemish. There is no mutual distinction between Krishna and his body. The materially, and we can also, throw in here his holy name, right? We're also told that his holy name is non-different from his holy self because it's on an absolute spiritual platform. There's not the what's the word? I always forget that word and I always try to remember, but the disparateness. Okay, Marie, thanks for joining us. This estrangement, this is the word I always forget and I always want to remember. This estrangement is not there. That is only in the mundane plane. There is no mutual distinction between Krishna and his body. The materially conditioned soul and his body are separate elements. In the intrinsic transcendental form, there is not the estrangement of body and embodied, limbs and body, nature and its possessor. This difference is to be found only in the materially conditioned soul. Although Krishna is the owner of his limbs, each of his limbs are also Krishna in full. All his transcendental faculties are present in each of his limbs. Therefore, he is the indivisible, complete, transcendental truth. The spirit, soul, or Jivatma and Krishna, both are spiritual and thus of the same category. Yet the difference between the two is that all the transcendental qualities are present in the individual soul in an atomic proportion and present in Krishna infinitely. When the jiva attains to his divine form, those qualities become openly revealed in atomic form. By the grace of Krishna, when the power of the transcendental hladini or ecstasy potency makes its descent in the heart of the soul, he attains to a perfection resembling the infinite. Nonetheless, Krishna retains certain unique qualities that make him worshipable by all. Those fourfold qualities are not manifest in the Lord of Vaikuntha or the Purush avatar expansions. They are also absent in the gods headed by Girisha, Lord Shiva, not to mention the Jiva. So I'm going to stop there. We are going a little over time. Wow. Incredible. So refreshing and clarifying, right? To hear these explanations and these descriptions. It's hard to stop it. Just tear ourselves away. This next verse is really, really nice too. This line, Vedeshu Dorla Bama Dorla. Wait, what is difficult to achieve? That supreme person who's difficult to achieve by ordinary approaches, by the scriptural approach. He is very easy to achieve, by devotion, by heart, by love. That line is often quoted by our gurus. Okay, well, anyone have any final comments before we close for today? So good to have all of your association on this wonderful journey, wonderful adventure. All right, well, we'll pick up from verse 33 next week. And I think Suvasini, you'll be traveling on that day also. So I'll probably host again. All right.
Yes, Didi, I will be traveling again on the same
Okay.
day.
Okay, so we're gonna have to miss your wonderful hosting again.
I'm happy I could be, there, just hearing, beautiful verses. Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
Jai Shri Bhakti Sandar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Radha
Jai.
Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sri Brahma-samhita Jai, all the assembled devotees, sincere seekers Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Jai people.
Dhanavats.
Well,
Thank you
next
for your
time.
association.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Very cool.